Welcome to part 2 of how to drive stick shift. This is intermediate techniques. We're going to cover 3 things. Number 1, how to downshift Rev-Match. Number 2, starting on an incline. And number 3, common mistakes to avoid. So, downshift Rev-Matching. When we go from a lower gear to a higher gear, as we did in part 1, so we started from first to second, second to third, etc., the revs drop. So I'm in 4th right now, going 35 miles an hour at 2,500 RPM. If I go to a higher gear, 5th, same speed, my revs will drop, okay? So at any given speed, if I am in a lower gear, the revs need to be higher, and if I'm in a higher gear, the revs will be lower. So as an example, I'm in 2nd going at 4,000 RPM, and now if I go to 3rd gear, the revs will drop at that same speed. I'm now at 3,000 RPM, and 4,000 will drop further, and 5th again. As I go down from 5th to 4th, same speed, revs need to increase, like that. So the reason we have to rev match on our downshifts is because if we don't blip the throttle, if we don't push the revs up to match that new speed that the engine needs to spin at this lower gear, it's going to be very jerky. It's going to be bad for the transmission. It adds wear and tear on the clutch, as well as it can disrupt the balance of the car if you're driving it fast at the limit. So I'm going to show you what happens if you don't rev match. I'm in 5th gear right now. I'm going to go to 4th without rev matching. I'm just going to let go of the clutch, and the friction from the wheels, or essentially the clutch and the engine, is going to cause it to lurch forward. It's going to feel very jerky, I should say. Boom, like that. Not fun. Again, not fun. Not a good habit. It's bad for the car, it's bad for the passengers, it's bad for the balance of the vehicle. So what we do is we very briefly blip the throttle with our right foot when we are downshifting. So I know I said in part 1, you never want to have your gas and clutch press at the same time. That's a general good rule to follow. However, there are exceptions to that rule, and this is one of those exceptions. So what I'm going to do is get up to speed. I'm going to get up to 5th gear, and I'm going to downshift rev match by clutching in, blipping the throttle as we shift. Like that. We're at 4th, and I'm now going to go from 4th to 3rd. Same thing. It's a very brief, split-second blip of the throttle. Now, as we upshift from 3rd to 4th, I don't need to do that because the revs need to drop. And by letting go of the throttle when I'm pushing in the clutch, they will naturally drop, and when I let the clutch out into the next gear, it catches it at the right time. So I hope it makes sense why we need to downshift rev match, because to be a good stick shift driver, you need to understand what's happening with the various components. So I'm going to show you a few more examples. And don't worry if you're not matching it perfectly at the beginning. That's normal. It's going to take time. It depends on each car too, in terms of the timing and how quickly you need to let go of the throttle and all that stuff. So let me so I'm in 3rd, 4th, and I'm going to downshift into 3rd, just like that. Getting into 2nd, the gear ratios are usually a little bit steeper, the change. So you need to blip it a little bit longer in most cars, but again, your car might be different. That's going from 3rd to 2nd. I don't recommend downshifting into 1st. 1st gear should only really be used when you're at a near stop. You're like 2 miles an hour or similar. Let's go left. Now, one other thing to avoid is sometimes with downshift rev matching, people will go too slow and it'll defeat the purpose. So the point is to blip the throttle and catch it at the precise moment such that you match the revs, right? That's why it's called downshift rev matching. If I were in 4th, downshift into 3rd, waited for the revs to drop, and then let go of the clutch, then that defeats the purpose. I'm now causing the same issue as before, where it's jerky. I'm not actually matching the revs. So you generally want to be quick with it. It's a very fluid motion. The other thing to keep in mind is you are catching the revs as they go up. If they are on the way down, the inertia, right? The engine is spinning down, slowing down, and you're now asking it, hey, go faster again. That's what gives you a jerky downshift, and you don't want that. So instead, when you blip it, the engine revs are rising. That's when you want to let go of the clutch, and that's when it's going to catch and shift more smoothly. So let's go to third, and third to second, just like that. Now, let me show you the second part of this series, or second part of this video, I should say, is how to start on an incline. The reason this is important is if we, in a stick shift vehicle, let go of the brake, we start rolling backwards, as you can see, ever so slightly. That's because we don't have that torque converter that's going to slowly push us forward, right? So there are two techniques you should know when it comes to starting on an incline. This is a pretty mild incline, so it's not too bad. But let's say you were in San Francisco. What I would recommend, and you're one of these really steep hills, is the e-brake technique. So the way it works is you engage the e-brake, the parking brake, while you're on this incline. And now, if you let go of the brake, the car doesn't roll back because the e-brake catches you. Then you would proceed to start the car as you normally would. However, when you let go of the clutch, and remember we talked about the engagement point, that sticking point when the clutch starts slipping a little bit. When you get to that point, that engagement point where the clutch starts catching is where you would release the parking brake and then proceed forward. And because you had the parking brake before that, you would not be rolling back even though your foot is off the brake. So what this looks like is it's as if I want to drive and then boom, let go, and I just roll forward. Simple as that. Very, very easy. It's more pronounced on a steeper incline. But again, let's say I'm on a really steep incline, parking brake engaged such that when my foot is off the brake, I don't roll back, and then I can do my normal steps, right? Normal steps of shifting into first with the clutch in, and then on the gas, slowly let go of the clutch. When it catches, let go, and then you proceed. Now, as you get more advanced, you will naturally gravitate to not needing to do that because you will know exactly how much to let off your foot from the clutch to get that engagement point. And then you can be very fast with starting the car, so fast that your car will barely roll backwards at all. Boom. So the car didn't really move backwards because I was quick to shift it. I was quick to release the clutch to that engagement point. Let me just show you one more time. When it's fast, it doesn't roll back. But if I want to do the parking brake technique or the e-brake assist, I can feel the car trying to lurch forward. That's when I release it and I just roll forward. Now, the final thing I want to cover are the common mistakes that beginner stick shift drivers make. So, number one is going to be riding the clutch. So I'm at a stop sign. A lot of people will put the car into first or even at a stoplight, and they'll just hold it like this. Left foot on the clutch, gear is in first, and this is extra wear and tear on various components, primarily the throwout bearing, which is not good. So you want to avoid that. What you would instead do is shift out into neutral. You would have your foot off the clutch, and remember your gear shift in the middle when it wiggles side by side, that's neutral. So that's mistake number one. The other mistake is holding or resting your hand on the gear selector like this. Engineering Explained did an excellent video covering why that's bad, why this adds more wear and tear on various linkages, and why you shouldn't do it. So, again, real quick, I'm at a stop sign, I'm in neutral. Foot is off the clutch. And now when I want to go, I can shift it easy. So resting your hand like this, not good. What you want to do is drive at 9 and 3, and then when you need to shift, that's the time when you touch. Touch, right? Otherwise, you're not touching the gear selector, you're at 9 and 3. All right, I think that is all we have for this part 2 intermediate series. In part 3, we're going to cover advanced techniques, including heel toe, double clutch, and ultimately combining the two and doing heel toe double clutch at the same time. See you guys there.